3 years after Mama Aduni's funeral, Kofi Adebayo still woke up searching for the one thing money couldn't buy back: his grandmother's coral necklace, the last piece of her prayers he could hold. Rain drummed against the car roof as his driver navigated through Ikoyi's wet streets toward the cemetery. Every Tuesday morning, same routine: visit her grave, talk to marble and earth, pretend she could still answer. The gravesite sat at the edge of Ikoyi Cemetery, marble gleaming white against red earth. Kofi pressed his palm to the headstone, feeling the carved letters of her name, the woman who raised him after the car crash that took his parents when he was 7. "Still looking, Mama," he whispered. "Still searching." His mind flashed back to the funeral 3 years ago. The chaos. Hundreds of people cramming into their family compound in Surulere, women wailing, men drinking palm wine, children running everywhere. Somewhere in that confusion, between the prayers and the dancing and the goodbyes, her coral necklace vanished. Gone. Like smoke. Back in his penthouse office overlooking Victoria Island, an entire wall tracked his obsession. Photos of the necklace from every angle. Maps of West Africa marked with investigator routes. Newspaper ads in 5 countries. A standing reward: 50 million naira. 3 years. No results. His phone buzzed. Another investigator texting failure. Kofi hurled the file across his office. Glass shattered. Papers scattered like broken promises. What would you give up to hold on to the last piece of someone you loved? Have you ever lost something irreplaceable? Not expensive, just irreplaceable. For 3 years, one man has searched every corner of West Africa for an answer. But what if the person who found it had no idea they were wearing his heart around their neck? If you've ever felt the weight of losing something sacred, drop a heart in the comments. This story is for you. What Kofi didn't know was that at that exact moment, miles away in Ajegunle, a 19-year-old girl was clasping that necklace around her throat, and it made her feel like royalty for the first time in her life. Amara woke at 4:30 a.m. to the sound of rain on tin roofs and her brother's cough. Another day of survival stretching ahead like an endless road. Chidi's chest rattled in the darkness. 13 years old, and still sleeping on the same thin mat they'd shared since their mother left. Blessing, only 9. Curled against the wall, thumb in her mouth like she was still a baby. Her room was smaller than most bathrooms in Victoria Island. Concrete walls sweating moisture. One window with cardboard where glass should be. But she kept it clean, their clothes folded in plastic bins, Blessing's school books stacked like treasures. 6 months. That's how long their mother had been gone. No warning, no letter. Just empty space where a woman used to sleep. Amara splashed water on her face from the bucket, changed into her market clothes. Dawn fruit selling came first, then office cleaning by noon. Hair braiding when the sun went down. 3 jobs, every day, just to keep them fed. Bang, bang, bang. The landlord's fist hammered their door. "Amara, rent is 3 weeks overdue." She pressed her forehead against the door, breathing slowly. "Friday, sir. I promise. By Friday." His footsteps faded down the corridor. When was the last time you made a promise you weren't sure you could keep? Share your story below, because Amara's about to make a choice that will haunt her. She picked up the coral necklace, turning it in the morning light filtering through their window. She'd found it 2 weeks ago in a gutter outside Echo Hotel, tangled with trash and rain. Part of her knew she should try to find its owner, But when she wore it, something changed. She stood taller, smiled easier, felt like maybe she mattered. So she kept it. Today, she'd wear it to the fruit market. Today, everything would change. Kofi stepped out of his Range Rover on a Tuesday afternoon in Victoria Island, frustrated and hungry, and saw the impossible. His grandmother's necklace on a stranger's neck. The business meeting had gone badly. 3 hours arguing with investors who wanted control he wouldn't give. His head pounded. He needed food. Suya from his favorite spot would clear his mind. He was crossing toward the vendor when he froze. The coral beads caught afternoon sun like they were on fire. Intricate patterns Kofi had memorized in childhood. The brass butterfly clasp his grandfather had forged by hand. The same necklace. On a girl in a faded yellow dress who couldn't be more than 20, laughing with a customer buying oranges. His blood turned to ice. "Stop her!" The words ripped from his throat before thought could catch up. His security team moved fast. 3 men in black suits surrounded the fruit stand. Customers scattered. The girl's smile died. Confusion flooded her face, then fear. "Where did you get that?" Kofi's voice cut through market noise, sharp as broken glass. She touched the necklace, protective. "Get what? I don't—" "That necklace. My grandmother's necklace. Where did you steal it?" "I didn't steal anything." Her voice climbed higher. "I found it. I swear to God. I found it in the gutter." Crowd gathering now, phones lifting, recording everything. "You're lying." Kofi reached for the necklace. She jerked backward, stumbling against her fruit crates. Oranges rolled everywhere. "Don't touch me." "That belongs to my family." "I found it. I'm not a thief." "Then explain how a street seller has a priceless family heirloom." The word street seller landed like a slap. Her eyes hardened. "You think poor people are all criminals? You think because I sell fruit I must have stolen something?" Phones everywhere now. Dozens of them, filming, uploading. Have you ever been accused of something you didn't do? When everyone assumed the worst about you? Drop your experience in the comments, because what happens next will make your blood boil. Hit that subscribe button right now. This story is just getting started, and the twist will shock you. The video uploaded to Twitter before Amara even understood what was happening. Within an hour, Jana Billionaire Bully was trending across Lagos. Within 2 hours, the whole country was watching, and neither of them had any idea that the real thief was sitting in Kofi's own living room, watching the chaos unfold with a satisfied smile. By sunset, Amara's face was on every phone screen in Nigeria, not as a person, but as a symbol. Poor girl attacked by billionaire. The story wrote itself. Except the story was a lie. Kofi's security didn't arrest her. They escorted her. Same difference when you're surrounded by men twice your size, shoved into a black SUV while strangers record your humiliation. The law office smelled like leather and old money. Wood-paneled walls lined with degrees from universities Amara had only seen in movies. She sat in a chair that cost more than her yearly rent, still wearing the necklace because they wouldn't let her remove it. Evidence, they said. The lawyer, a thin man with glasses too expensive for his narrow face, circled her like she was already guilty. "Do you know what this necklace is worth?" "I don't care what it's worth. I found it." "In a gutter." He said it like the word itself proved she was lying. "Outside a 5-star hotel. Do you expect us to believe that?" Amara met his eyes, refusing to look down. I expect you to believe the truth, but clearly, you've already decided I'm guilty. Miss, if you cooperate. Cooperate with what? I told you everything. I found it 2 weeks ago in a gutter on Amadou Bello Way. It was tangled with leaves and plastic bottles. I cleaned it. I wore it. That's all. Her phone on the desk kept lighting up. Chidi calling. Blessing calling. The landlord texting about eviction. Her fruit stand abandoned in the market. Inventory probably stolen by now. Outside this air-conditioned office, her life was falling apart. What would you do if your face was plastered across social media as a criminal for something you didn't do? Tell me in the comments, because Amara's nightmare is just beginning. Through the one-way glass, Kofi watched. Something in her face made his certainty crack. Not guilt. Defiance. The kind that comes from truth. While Amara sat in that office, her phone lit up with notifications. Chidi calling. Blessing calling. The landlord texting about eviction. Her fruit stand abandoned in the market. Inventory stolen. And Kofi, watching her through one-way glass, started to see something in her face that made his certainty crack. Not guilt. Defiance. The kind that comes from truth. Kofi hired the best forensic investigator in Lagos to prove she stole it. Instead, the investigator was about to prove Kofi destroyed an innocent girl's life. Dr. Okonkwo's laboratory occupied the top floor of a medical building in Ikeja. Sterile. Precise. Nothing like the chaos of assumptions Kofi had been living in. The evidence room glowed blue under UV lights, the coral beads revealing layers of history, oils from skin, traces of perfume. The residue of lives lived. The forensic specialist, Dr. Okonkwo, moved with surgeon precision, photography documenting every angle. Kofi stood behind her, arms crossed. How long before we can prove, Mr. Adebayo? Her voice was patient but firm. Science doesn't prove what you want. It proves what is. She magnified the brass clasp under specialized lighting. Silent minutes passed. Then she straightened, frowning. The fingerprints don't match your hands. Kofi's stomach dropped. What are you saying? I'm saying whoever handled this necklace last had access to your home. Recently. Within the last month. His face drained of color. That's impossible. The print pattern is clear. Adult male, larger hands. And these oils here. She pointed to residue on the clasp. Expensive cologne. Not the kind a fruit seller would wear. She pulled up her database, running the prints against people who'd had access to the Adebayo mansion. Security staff, house helps, family members. The computer beeped. Match found. Have you ever been so sure you were right, only to discover you were catastrophically wrong? Share your moment of realization below. Dr. Okonkwo pulled up the fingerprint match on her computer screen. The name displayed made Kofi stagger backward. Taiwo Adebayo, his uncle. The man who'd stood beside him at Mama Aduni's funeral, who'd helped him search for the necklace, who'd comforted him through 3 years of grief. And suddenly, Kofi understood. The necklace wasn't lost. It was stolen. By family. The worst thief isn't the stranger who takes your belongings. It's the family member who steals your grief and makes it their weapon. Kofi sat in his office as Lagos night pressed against floor-to-ceiling windows, the city's lights spread below like a circuit board. The financial reports covered his desk, evidence of his uncle's betrayal documented in numbers that made his stomach turn. 200 million naira, stolen while he grieved. He'd ordered a complete background check within an hour of seeing Taiwo's name on Dr. Okonkwo's screen. What came back was worse than theft. It was calculated destruction. His private investigator, a former police detective named Femi, laid it out piece by piece. Your uncle needed chaos. The missing necklace kept you focused on emotion, not the books. But he was at every search. Kofi's voice sounded hollow even to himself. Every meeting with investigators. Of course he was. He needed to control the narrative. When Amara found it and wore it, she became the perfect scapegoat. The dates aligned too perfectly. Taiwo had staged the necklace's disappearance the same week an internal audit was scheduled. 3 years of Kofi chasing ghosts while his uncle emptied company accounts. The necklace dumped in a gutter on Amadou Bello Way, far from their family compound, where it would disappear into Lagos's chaos forever. Except Amara found it, wore it, became visible. I destroyed that girl's life to protect a lie. Femi closed the file. What will you do now? Kofi looked at his reflection in the dark window. Behind the glass, the city pulsed with millions of lives. One of them belonged to a 19-year-old girl whose only crime was finding something beautiful in the gutter. Who do you trust when family betrays you? When the people closest to you use your pain as a weapon? Comment your thoughts below. Subscribe now because the next chapter shows what real accountability looks like, and it's not what you expect. Kofi stood up from his desk, decision crystallizing. He would confront Taiwo. He would clear Amara's name. But first, he had to do something he'd never done in his life. Admit he was wrong. Publicly, completely. And beg forgiveness from someone he'd already crucified in the court of public opinion. They say sorry is the hardest word. But Kofi was about to prove that sorry means nothing without action, without sacrifice, without getting on your knees in front of the world you humiliated someone in front of. The press conference location was deliberate, the exact spot where Kofi's security had surrounded Amara 3 days ago. Same fruit stand, same crowd. But this time, Kofi wasn't arriving in power. He was arriving in truth. Cameras everywhere, reporters shouting questions, the crowd pressing forward, hungry for drama. Amara stood to the side, arms crossed, face unreadable. She'd agreed to come only after Kofi promised this wasn't about him looking good. This was about setting the record straight. Kofi stepped to the microphone, cleared his throat. The crowd fell silent. 3 days ago, I accused a young woman of theft in this exact location. I used my wealth and influence to humiliate her publicly. I was wrong. Murmurs through the crowd. Phones lifting. Recording. The necklace Amara was wearing belonged to my grandmother. But she didn't steal it. She found it in a gutter where my uncle, Taiwo Adebayo, deliberately dumped it after stealing it from our home. My uncle has been arrested for theft and embezzlement of over 200 million naira from my family's company. Gasps. The story was shifting. But this isn't about my uncle. This is about what I did to Amara. He stepped away from the microphone, walked to where she stood. The crowd parted. I need to say something to Amara. Not to cameras, to her. He dropped to his knees on the pavement. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. I judged you by what I expected to see, not who you are. I used my power as a weapon because I could. I was wrong. I am so deeply, unforgivably wrong. Silence. Heavy. Complete. Amara looked down at him. Her voice quiet but carrying. You saw poverty and assumed guilt. That's not about me. That's about you. Her words hit harder than any accusation. Truth always does. Would you forgive someone who publicly humiliated you, even if they apologized? Tell me your boundaries in the comments. As Kofi stood up, Amara did something no one expected. She removed the necklace and handed it to him. "This belongs to your family," she said. "I never wanted to take anything from anyone." But Kofi didn't reach for it. Instead, he said 5 words that would change both their lives. "I have a different proposal." Amara expected money as compensation, a check, an apology payment. What she got instead was an offer that would either save her or trap her in a world she didn't understand. They met the next morning at a cafe in Yaba, neutral ground between his world and hers. She arrived on Danfo. He arrived in a car that cost more than the building. But at the small table, they were just 2 people trying to figure out what justice actually looked like. Kofi slid a folder across the table. "Your siblings' school fees, paid through university, no strings." Amara didn't touch it. And I want to offer you a position at my company, Community Insight Consultant. You'd help us understand markets we're failing to reach." She laughed, sharp and bitter. "You want to hire me? The thief? I want to hire the woman who built a fruit business from nothing, who raised 2 children alone at 19, who survived what would crush most people. I don't want your guilt money. It's not guilt. It's investment. You survived poverty that would break most people. That's wisdom my company needs. Your company is tech. I sell oranges. You understand street markets, microeconomies, trust networks. You built a business from nothing. That's what I need." Amara studied his face, searching for the trap. "What's the catch?" "No catch. You work, you earn. We shake hands as equals." "Equals." She tasted the word like it might be poison. A billionaire and a fruit seller. A CEO and an entrepreneur. That's what you are, Amara. You just didn't have capital. Silence stretched between them. Lagos traffic roared outside. Life continuing, whether they decided anything or not. "I need to think about it." Take your time. If someone who wronged you offered to change your life, would you trust them? Or would you walk away? Comment below. That night, Blessing asked the question Amara couldn't answer. Are you going to work for the man who tried to put you in jail? Amara realized the answer wasn't about forgiveness. It was about whether she could take what he offered and transform it into something that belonged to her. Something he couldn't take back. Walking into Kofi's tech company felt like landing on Mars. Glass and steel and people who'd never missed a meal, staring at the girl from the fruit market like she was the alien. The office occupied 3 floors of a Lagos Island high-rise, windows overlooking the harbor. Everything was white and chrome and expensive. The air conditioning so cold, Amara wrapped her arms around herself. People in crisp shirts and tailored dresses glanced at her second-hand blazer, her shoes from Balogan Market. She felt every stare, every whisper. Kofi walked her through departments, introducing her as Community Insight Consultant. The title felt too big for her mouth, but she held her head up, refused to shrink. The staff meeting was worse. 20 people around a conference table, all watching her like she was a problem to solve. Kofi explained her role. Silence followed. Then questions that weren't really questions. What exactly are her qualifications? A senior developer, voice dripping with doubt. Kofi's jaw tightened. She built a profitable business with 0 capital. How many of you could do that? Another voice from the back. This is charity. Amara stood. Every eye turned to her. You're right. It is charity. Charity for all of you who've never had to understand your actual customers. I'm here to teach you what you don't know. You can learn, or you can keep failing. Your choice. The room went silent. She sat back down, heart hammering, but face calm. Have you ever walked into a room where everyone doubted you before you opened your mouth? What did you do? Share below. After the meeting, Kofi handed Amara the company's market research files. Tell me why our app has zero adoption in Ajegunle, he said. She flipped through the data and started laughing. Really laughing. You want the real answer, or the one that won't hurt your feelings? The answer she gave would restructure his entire business model. Turns out, the Billionaire's tech company knew everything about algorithms and nothing about actual human beings. And Amara was about to become their most expensive teacher. The conference room whiteboard filled with her handwriting. Not corporate jargon, but real problems. You need bank accounts, she wrote. We use cash and trust. You need addresses. We use landmarks. Near Mama Put's shop, behind the yellow church. You built this for people who already have money. That's not innovation. That's exclusion. The development team stared at the board like she'd written in another language. The CFO leaned back, arms crossed. Redesigning the platform will cost millions. Amara turned to face him. Losing the majority market costs more. Half of Lagos can't use your app. That's not our failure. It's yours. Kofi watched from the corner, silent but attentive. How long to implement her recommendations? He asked. The development lead scratched his head. 6 months minimum. Amara shook her head. Or 6 weeks, if you actually ask the communities you're trying to serve. Bring me 3 developers willing to work in Ajegunle for a month. Shock around the table. Nobody spoke. You can't learn my world from this office, Amara continued. You need to sit where we sit, eat where we eat, see what we see. Otherwise, you're just guessing, and your guesses are expensive. The CFO's expression shifted from skepticism to something else. Respect, maybe, or recognition that she was right. When was the last time someone who lived a struggle taught you something books never could? Comment below. Hit that like button if you believe real change comes from lived experience, not just degrees and data. That evening, as Amara left the office building, a black car pulled up beside her. Not Kofi's. The window rolled down, and Uncle Taiwo's face appeared, released on bail, smiling. You took something that doesn't belong to you, he said quietly, and I always collect my debts. Before she could respond, the car sped away. Amara thought the villain was already in jail, until she realized that sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones with nothing left to lose. The threats started small. A note under her door. You ruined everything. Then her fruit stand, which she still maintained, was vandalized overnight. Oranges crushed into the dirt. Then the phone calls at 3 a.m., silent but menacing. And finally, the photo slipped into Blessing's school bag. Amara walking home, circled in red ink. She didn't tell Kofi. Couldn't. She'd spent her whole life solving her own problems. Asking for help felt like admitting defeat. But Chidi noticed. Sister, that same car has been parked outside for 3 days now. Amara looked through their window. Black sedan. Tinted windows. Her stomach turned cold. At night, she triple-checked the locks. jumped at footsteps in the corridor. Blessing asked, "Sister, are you scared?" "No, never." But her hands shook, holding the latest note. "You took what's mine. I'll take what's yours." She knew who it was. Taiwo. Released on bail while lawyers argued legal technicalities. Free to terrorize her while the system moved slow as molasses. What would you do if helping yourself put the people you love in danger? When does pride become recklessness? Tell me below. The breaking point came on Thursday evening. Amara returned home to find her door already unlocked. Inside, everything was ransacked. Not stolen, just destroyed. Her siblings' school books torn apart. Blessing's drawings ripped to pieces. And on the wall, written in red paint, "This is only the beginning." She finally pulled out her phone to call Kofi. But before she could dial, she heard footsteps behind her in the hallway. Amara had spent 19 years learning to save herself. Learning to trust someone else to protect her felt like surrendering a war she'd been winning alone. Kofi arrived with police and security within 15 minutes. By midnight, they'd moved Amara and her siblings to a secure apartment in Lekki Phase 1. The new apartment in Lekki Phase 1 had 3 bedrooms, air conditioning that actually worked, and windows that locked properly. Chidi kept touching the walls like he couldn't believe they weren't sweating moisture. Blessing ran from room to room, laughing. But Amara stood in the doorway, unable to cross the threshold. "I can't live here. This isn't mine." Kofi's voice was patient but firm. "It's temporary, until Taiwo is properly dealt with. I survived 19 years without you. I can survive this." "This isn't about survival anymore. This is about someone targeting you because of my mistakes. Let me fix this. I'm not your responsibility." "You're right. You're not my responsibility. You're my partner, and partners protect each other." The word partner hung between them. Equal, not rescuer and victim, not charity and recipient. Silence stretched. Then Amara stepped inside. The police investigation intensified. Detectives discovered Taiwo had connections to dangerous people. Men who solved problems with violence, not lawyers. The threats weren't empty. They were promises. When does accepting help stop being charity and become partnership? When is it okay to let someone protect you? Share your wisdom. That night, security cameras caught someone trying to enter the building. But it wasn't Taiwo. It was a woman Amara recognized immediately from old photographs. Her mother. The woman who'd abandoned them 6 months ago. And she was demanding to see her children. Forgiveness is complicated when the person who broke you shows up demanding a second chance they never earned. Especially when you've finally started rebuilding without them. Her mother looked smaller than Amara remembered. Thin in a way that spoke of hard living, eyes avoiding direct contact. They met in the apartment's common area, security present but distant. Blessing hid behind Amara. Chidi stared with something between anger and longing. Kioma. Amara used her mother's name, not Mama. Distance in a single word. I did what I had to do to keep us safe. You left us to starve. That's not safety. That's abandonment. Those men would have hurt you. I drew them away. For 6 months? Not a word? Not a text? Not even proof you were alive? Chioma's hands twisted together. I'm here now. That doesn't erase 6 months of Blessing crying herself to sleep, or Chidi asking me every day if you were dead. Tears rolled down her mother's face, but Amara's heart stayed hard. protected by months of carrying weight alone. I forgive you, but I don't trust you. And those are different things. Can you forgive someone who abandoned you? Should you? Where do you draw the line between compassion and self-protection? Comment below. But Kioma had brought something that changed everything. Evidence that Taiwo's crimes went far beyond embezzlement. He'd been involved in fraud schemes that destroyed dozens of families, using the Adebayo name as cover. And the final piece of evidence? A recording of Taiwo planning to eliminate anyone who could testify against him, including Amara. They say justice is blind, but Amara learned that real justice requires opening your eyes to the full truth, even when that truth is terrifying. Kioma's evidence led to Taiwo's rearrest. No bail this time. Federal prosecutors took over. What started as embezzlement became racketeering, fraud, conspiracy. The courtroom filled with people whose lives Taiwo had shattered. Business owners he'd defrauded, families he'd destroyed, communities he'd exploited. Amara sat in the witness stand, looking directly at the man who'd threatened her, refusing to look away. If he wanted her scared, he'd miscalculated everything. The prosecutor's questions were sharp, direct. Why did you keep the necklace? Amara's voice stayed steady. Because I'd never owned anything beautiful. Because for one moment, I wanted to feel like I mattered. And when you learned who it belonged to, I would have returned it. I tried to find information, but nobody looks at girls like me and sees honesty. They see opportunity for blame. She turned to face Taiwo directly. You knew that. You counted on it. You thought destroying me would be easy because people like me are disposable to people like you. Silence filled the courtroom. But we're not. We never were. The jury took 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. 15 years in prison. Have you ever had to stand up to someone who thought you were too small, too poor, too powerless to matter? What happened? Share your victory. After the verdict, Kofi found Amara outside the courthouse. Lagos traffic roaring past, humidity thick as soup. You saved my company today, he said. She shook her head. I saved myself. Your company was just collateral benefit. He smiled. Then let me ask you something. Not as your employer. As someone who respects what you've built. The company wants to go public. I want you on the founding board. Equal partner. Equal stake. What do you say? 6 months ago, Amara was selling oranges in Ajegunle, praying for rent money. Today, she's signing documents that will make her one of the youngest board members of a company worth billions. But the real wealth? She never lost herself in the transformation. The company went public. Amara's redesign tripled user adoption in underserved markets. Her insights changed how the entire tech industry thought about accessibility. She still lived modestly by choice, a comfortable apartment in Yaba, not Lekki. Close to where she came from. Chidi and Blessing thrived in private school, but came home to cook rice and stew together every Sunday. Chioma visited weekly now, supervised, boundaries clear, trust being rebuilt slowly, one honest conversation at a time. And Kofi wore Mama Aduni's necklace every day, a gift from Amara, returned freely this time, not stolen, not found, given. The foundation's opening ceremony took place in Ajegunle, the neighborhood that raised her. The building was modest, nothing like Kofi's gleaming offices, but it pulsed with life. Women learning business skills, youth learning coding, children in after-school programs. The walls displayed photos of recipients, Faces that looked like Amara's had 6 months ago. Tired, hopeful, fighting. Amara stood at the microphone, Chidi and Blessing in front row, Chioma standing at the back, Kofi beside her, coral necklace visible at his throat. This place exists because I made a choice 6 months ago. I wore something that didn't belong to me. I made a mistake. But that mistake revealed something true. We all deserve second chances. Not charity, not pity, just chances. Applause rolled through the crowd. But here's what I learned. Second chances only work if you stay yourself through the transformation. If you remember where you came from, even as you move toward where you're going. So here's my question for you. If someone saw your worth before you believed in it yourself, would you let them help you? Or would you walk away? Would you transform while staying true to who you are? Tell me in the comments what you would have done in Amara's place. Because her story isn't about luck. It's about choices. The choice to stay honest. The choice to demand respect. The choice to forgive without forgetting. And the choice to transform a system instead of just escaping it. If this story reminded you that your worth isn't determined by your circumstances, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that prove transformation doesn't require losing yourself. It requires finding who you've always been. Drop a comment sharing one thing you'd change in your community if you had the resources. Remember, Amara started with nothing but a found necklace and the courage to demand respect. What will you start with? And as for the coral necklace? Kofi wears it every day, not as a reminder of what he lost, but as proof that sometimes the most valuable things we find aren't objects. They're people who show us who we really are.